Hello, everyone. We're here today with the School of Soul. We want to welcome everyone back. I hope you've been enjoying all of our videos and you're beginning to have a clearer understanding of your soul and how to listen to your soul, how to speak with your soul, and the importance of it. So today, we're going to be looking at the coronavirus. That's all on our minds, not only here in the United States, but globally. So, what does the coronavirus mean? Of course, we know that corona is crown, and we know that virus is a slimy, poisonous liquid. Some places it's described as a parasite. And so we know we have a crown chakra. So we'll kind of look at that a little bit. But we do know that the world is looking at the coronavirus through physical eyes. How is it affecting the physical body? It's a physical infection. It's being looked at as healing through physical methods. But today we're going to look at it a little bit different. So I'm here today with
Deborah Shalette Wilson,
Ian,
Ann Riddels,
and I'm Kathy McCommon. We are really excited to get into this particular subject because coronavirus is on all of our minds. So let's just think about it a little bit about, we've lost a lot of people that we love, that are very dear to us. And as we address the coronavirus from a soul's perspective, we in no way are discounting the physical losses. We're just taking it to a different perspective, a different level. We want you to understand that the soul delivers messages to us, and those that have left us, what message did they leave behind? What did they want us to know? And can we shorten this lesson by learning the lessons that those that have left us have left behind? So, why is humanity going through this particular challenge? And what is our soul communicating to us? Maybe you want to elaborate a little bit on that?
Well, to me, one of the messages is it's time to evolve past this focusing on the physical as the area of cause and the area of cure. As I was trained largely in medical school, it's time to get the bigger perspective to that soul level, as you were speaking of, that we are not just physical beings, we are emotional beings, we feel. We are mental beings, we think, and we feel about what we think about what we feel. And our different parts are not mutually exclusive. They're interconnected, just like our physical body is interconnected. And in that, everything is expressing itself through everything.
Deborah, did you want to comment on any of that?
well, as we've talked about in the other videos, we, are integrated as a being physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And we do have a tendency to just look at the physical. And it's not to discount the physical, but we're not looking at the wholeness of who we are. And so if we're not, to me, looking at the wholeness of who we are, then we're missing valuable information and valuable opportunities to grow and to develop ourselves into a better humanity, a more caring and loving humanity, a humanity where we are a community that helps each other instead of hurts each other. And so that's kind of one of the lessons that I see, that the virus has brought to the fore a lot of things that have been problems for a long, long time that have gone unresolved. And they've been hidden, and they're not hidden anymore.
And as you talk about our smallness, like in human development, we get bigger, but our society tends to make us smaller by, oh, you shouldn't be that way. You're a female, you shouldn't have masculine traits. They whittle away who we are. So as we get smaller and smaller, to me, that's what the virus represents, that small identity that's just a tiny fraction of who we are when we know our true identity as part of a greater whole.
Right. And of course, viruses are extremely tiny, yet they have the ability, just like when we're being taught who we are, whether that's true or not, but we're made to be placed smaller and smaller in the world. It like takes over like a virus, and we lose connection with our own selves, let alone with each other. Because if I'm not connected to myself, how am I going to connect to anybody else? I'm just going to perpetuate the unexpressed, unprocessed, unintegrated traumas from my past and be recreating that instead of healing, growing, and moving forward.
So let's look at some of the ways that the coronavirus is expressing itself in our world right now. So first of all, we know that the coronavirus is causing us a lot of stress. So what happens to the body in the physical world? What happens to the body when the body's stressed? Well, communication shuts down between the brain and the gut because there's a lot of fear there. So on a soul level, what does that mean? What are we showing, or what are we mirroring out into our world through the stress of the virus shutting down communication between the brain and the gut? So how does that relate to the soul?
It's what we've all done as far as severing off the soul and just looking at the physical as far as causes and cures.
And that's all there is, when there's a whole lot more, and we can only see to the level of what our beliefs are. And so if we believe that we have to be in fear, concern is different from fear for me. Concern about, doing different things, taking care of, like I have concern about my health. So I do certain things to keep my health going. I'm not in fear about it. But so fear shuts me down, concern moves me forward into learning and growing and doing things that are helpful in my life. Fear has an aspect of helpfulness, but only if you're really being threatened by something that you can't do anything about. Like, when you're a child in trauma and stuff, that kind of, you get into that survival place to deal with those kind of issues, but you don't want to stay there. And so fear shuts us down. I kind of think of fear like a stagnant pond. Nothing can get in and nothing can get out. So it just grows all this green stuff.
There's also no communication.
And there's no oxygen either. So all the fish, whatever's in the pond dies.
And you think about, here we are being separated so that we don't have the communication with each other. And that is a result of fear. So let's talk about fear. Let's just kind of throw out some things about fear. So because our soul is continually mirroring in our physical world what's going on inside. Even though we may not be looking, we may not be listening, it's always mirroring out here in our world. So we have fear. And wouldn't you agree that our society has lived for hundreds of years underneath the oppression of fear?
Well, it can be found. I'm someone who appreciates fear and that it's a communication that there's danger.
Yes.
So I need it. It's biologically built
Right.
in, but we don't want to stay there,
Right.
nor do we want to gratuitously feed it so I can use you in your fearful state to say, oh, I've got the solution. You need to pay me. To give you that solution, it's so often manipulated.
Yeah, okay, so maybe I should have reworded that and said, don't you see that we have been manipulated by fear? Both by our leaders, and even we manipulate ourselves by our own fears.
Yes, and that's where human development comes in.
Mm-hmm.
And that when people are stuck in fear themselves, either consciously or unconsciously, and the more unconscious it is, the more they're likely to act it out. So I make you feel the fear that's deeply stuck inside me that I'm probably not aware of. And that's what's going on a large scale. People have this unconscious terror And so they're terrorizing.
Well, they project it out on to other people,
Mhm.
what's within them, and say, you're doing it, rather than I'm feeling the fear. It's you're making me feel fear. I'm a victim of you. And that's not, not really helpful at all. Of course, we are indoctrinated into fear as children because uh, we fear the loss of the parents, because if we don't have our caregivers to take care of us, then
What
we'll
will
die.
happen to us?
Yeah, we'll die.
Mhm.
But again, if you grow up in a lot of trauma, then unfortunately that survival system gets the button gets stuck on instead of being able to be on and off, because that's kind of how I view my survival system. It's like I also need that it gives me information. But the problem is if you grow up with trauma, then that gets stuck, and now you're seeing danger everywhere, even if it isn't. And so that's part of the process of learning and growing and healing when you've had years of trauma.
You kind of develop a habit of looking for fearful things.
Yeah.
And if you don't see it where it is, you see it where it isn't, as a
Mhm.
way of
Yeah.
Developing a skill. You see it in a safe place first, so you can get the skill down to slowly see it where it truly is, and where it truly is dangerous.
Yeah. So, I mean, fear has a place. I don't know. I kind of think all emotions have a place. They have, I guess you could say, a polarity of helpfulness and not helpfulness. And it's, I guess maturing emotionally is about being able to discern where you're at and which polarity you're on, and is how useful is it.
And seeing everything holistically, from the coronavirus to a response to it, there is much to learn on both ends, both the good and
Both
the bad.
polarities.
Yeah.
I think our audience would probably like to know how do we manage fear uh, walking through this coronavirus? What do you do? What are some things that we can do and suggest to our audience that will help them with this energy of fear?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind for me is you pause, notice it, and I'm feeling afraid, really scared. What does the future hold? I'm scared. And take it back. Follow all the fear, because so often it takes you back to scary scenes in the past that have never been resolved. And that terror is still in our tissues somewhere, causing illness. So we need to bring it into our consciousness, express it consciously out of our tissues, which helps support a healthy immune system and lessens our likelihood of succumbing to the coronavirus.
So you're bringing the past fears into consciousness, so that maybe you can have a conversation with it.
Making the unconscious conscious then gives you. I find it's empowering. It used to be scary to do that, but now it's I've been doing it a while, so it's like, okay, this is what now I know what I need to do. And for me, it's taking care, being a good steward of my life in all its aspects, and taking care of things that I can take care of. And I don't know, that brings me a lot of peace. I just focus on what I can do about something rather than what I can't do about it.
And one thing we can do is embrace that inner child, who's usually the scared part of us, and say, sweetie, oh, I know this is scary. You don't know what the future holds. And work with that part of us as you would a child.
Yeah, and sometimes I remember, it helps me to remember the times when I was afraid and there wasn't really anything to be afraid of, because it was coming from in here. It wasn't what was out there. And reminding myself of those experiences, that how many times have I thought something bad, terrible, awful was going to happen, and my monkey mind just started running, and it didn't, and how much energy I wasted doing that, and then it's for nothing, and I was all upset and wasted my time. And
I had a friend call me a couple of days ago, and she was very fearful. She had felt no no other way but to buy a vehicle that she felt she couldn't afford and keep it for a year.
Oh, little addictions. there.
Yeah. And so she is driving around in this beautiful car that she signed the papers on, miserable
Mhm.
and fearful that she's not going to be able to pay for this vehicle.
Mhm.
So she asked me, she says, I'm so afraid. Please tell me what you do when you're afraid. I had to think for a minute. How do I handle that
Mhm.
now in this more soulful way? And I thought, well, I think the first thing I do is I start realizing that today, in this moment, I'm safe. I have a roof over my head. I have a bed to sleep in. My family is safe and healthy. And then I remind myself that if I go to the place of projecting, tomorrow I'm not going to be able to pay for this car tomorrow. I might lose my job in a week. Then all my joy is gone.
Mhm.
My body is set up to respond to a tiger coming after me
Mhm.
in the high grasses and me running. And I told her, I said, do you want to run from that tiger for a whole year?
Sounds
Because that's how
great.
long she wants to keep the vehicle, is for a year. And I said, why not be grateful for the vehicle and determine that you live in a friendly universe and that everything will work out. And if something comes up, you get the coronavirus, you'll deal with it.
Mhm.
You'll find a way and you will deal with it. Instead of thinking, oh, if I go and I hug and love on my family and my friends, or I'm around them, then I'm going to get sick and die. You know, that's no way to live.
It's a child's perspective, though, and that's
It
where the adult
is.
comes in to say that's one possibility. But
There are
we
more.
lose our job, we get another one. We
Yeah,
get sick, we find someone who has a remedy.
yeah.
Right. There are solutions. And see,
Right.
I think we get stuck in the problem,
Mm-hmm.
and then we can't see the solutions. And the solutions are there, but we've just got to look for them. You know, we get what we go looking for, is what I think.
And all you have to do is look in history, and sometimes
Mhm.
it's a crisis that causes these major inventions to come forward that improve society.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, I've seen, as a history person, what was the saying is history repeats itself until you learn the lesson. I decided, okay, I'm learning the lesson as fast as I can. I don't want to keep repeating the same old stuff.
And that's our challenge.
It
with the
gets
coronavirus.
boring.
It's our
after a
challenge
while.
with the coronavirus. It's for humanity to learn its lesson and to have that soul growth so that we can be more loving, better, less fearful of ourselves and our world, and to move together as a society forward.
And for me, in conclusion, the one main lesson I've gotten is do not play small. The virus is so microscopic. Be coming from that higher self. What's your lesson you got,
Yeah.
Deborah?
Well, I've got many lessons. I guess one of the most important ones is using what I've learned from being willing to face my experiences of trauma, because in facing and healing from that, I've gained a lot of wisdom that keeps helping me now to remind myself I was a child and experienced those things. It wasn't me, the adult, it was me, the child. And if that child can do that, then me, the adult, can do what I need to do now.
Mhm.
Awesome.
Okay, so I think that concludes our first in a series around the coronavirus. We're going to be talking more about it. We're going to be bringing in more aspects of it. We'll bring in some physical things. We're going to be talking about belief systems around the coronavirus. We're going to be talking about various ways that it's manifesting in society. I think you're going to really enjoy it. We're excited to bring it to you. So until next time, thank you for joining us.
Bye.